This is JSON for beginners in 4 minutes. JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. JSON is used to store data with keys and values. As you can see to the right, we have some data from Mozilla that we'll be going over in this video. Keys must be unique strings. A string is a list of characters such as ABC, 1, 2, 3, in quotes. You can't have two keys that are both identical, as they're unique identifiers. JSON values are one of the following 6 data types: string, which is text; numbers, which can have decimal points, such as 3.14, or be negative, such as -2; booleans, which are either true or false values, written without quotes and in lowercase; null, which is the intentional lack of a value, also without quotes and lowercase; an array, which is a list of items in order, in other words, organized by what order it appears in, not by keys; an object, which of course follows JSON syntax and has key-value pairs. Now, let's look at the syntax. Data is stored in key-value pairs, keys and values are separated by colons, and key-value items are separated by commas. So if you look at the top, you can see a key, which is the string in blue, and then a value, which is the string in orange. After the keys there are colons to separate the keys and values, and after the key-value pairs there are commas to separate the items. For example, the hometown property is set to the string Metro City. Strings are surrounded by double quotes. As you can see, hometown is set to Metro City. Numbers are shown without quotes, just with the digits, and optionally with a decimal point and or a negative sign. Booleans are either true or false, as shown without quotes. Null is the text null without quotes. An array is a list of items in square braces, as you can see on the top right. Objects are keys and values contained in curly braces, as you can see in the bottom right, and they follow JSON syntax. Files are stored using the .json file extension. Sometimes, people store JSON in text files. Values can be JSON objects, so you can have many layers. As an example, members is an array of objects, and each object is in JSON, so you once again see key-value pairs. And one of those keys is powers, which has a value of an array of strings. Any spaces and tabs not in quotes, as well as new lines, are ignored and only used by humans to make the data readable. Indenting with white space is used to see how many layers deep some data is, and is not used by computers. So for example, on the bottom right, you can see the JSON is indented with tabs to the left of the text. To the left of that, there's an example indented with spaces. It's up to personal preference. The important thing is that you as a human can quickly see how deep some of the data is. So looking inside of Molecule Man's powers, we can see they are indented 4 times to show that they are inside of powers, inside of an object, inside of members, inside of our JSON object. Above, you can see what the data looks like without indentation, which makes it harder to read. And to the left, you can see the data with new lines removed as well, so it has no white space. This is the smallest file size in how computers see the data. In JavaScript, values can also be functions, dates, or undefined. You can use single or double quotes, and keys without dashes or other special characters have quotes omitted entirely. And you can have a trailing comma, which is a comma after the last item in a list. So for example, the left is valid JSON, and also a valid JavaScript object, but the right is only valid in JavaScript. Notice that powers doesn't need quotes around it. The strings have single quotes, one of the values is undefined, and there's a trailing comma, a comma after the last item. These are all options you can use in JavaScript objects, but they're not valid in JSON. JSON must have keys in double quotes. Double quotes are the only valid quotes. You cannot have trailing commas, and you are limited to the 6 types of data we went over earlier. JSON is used to store data. It's simple to understand and common practice in many places. It's often used by databases to store data and APIs to send and receive data. And it's stored in plain text, which makes it very easy to work with. JavaScript, Python, and many other programming languages have built-in utilities for handling JSON data. For example, JavaScript has JSON.parse and JSON.stringify, and Python you can import JSON and then use JSON.loads and JSON.dumps. Alternatives to JSON for storing data include XML and CSV. Here's the full example JSON. I'll link this presentation below as a pinned comment, which also contains the example JSON if you want to play with it. Thanks for watching.